It's been 5 days since Thanksgiving. Are those leftovers still sitting in your fridge? That's a Verify for another day. Tonight, we're talking about a different sort of leftovers, campaign cash.
Yeah, and a lot of it. Hard to believe that Election Day was 3 weeks ago, but we're talking about it again tonight after viewers asked us, where does all of that campaign money go now that the election is over? Team 12's Jason Puckett verified it.
Election 2018 is over, and you're probably glad the ads are too. But there's actually leftover cash raised with the help of those ads. A lot of cash. Candidates for federal congressional races raised more than $2.5 billion, but only spent about $2.2 billion. And that leaves more than $325 million unspent. That's like $1 per person for every U.S. citizen. And what happened to it? That's what Ray Kelly wrote to ask us. And we sorted through dozens of pages of nuanced restrictions and guidelines from the Federal Elections Commission. They keep track of all the money raised and spent. Bottom line, leftover money has to go somewhere. And there are three main ways it's spent. 1. Candidates can pay any remaining campaign expenses. 2. The leftover money can be sent to another candidate's campaign, or they can save it for a future campaign. President Trump did that ahead of 2020. 3. They can donate leftover money to charity or nonprofits or start their own, but the candidate can't benefit from it. And that leads right into the main point. You can't keep campaign funds for yourself. It doesn't matter if it's during the campaign or after. The FEC makes it clear, quote, use of campaign funds for personal use is prohibited. And they monitor it. If the money spent, donated, or transferred doesn't match the money raised, the FEC will investigate. And anyone who isn't following the rules could potentially face jail time. With your Verify, I'm Jason Puckett.